Two to you at 7:45. A very good morning to the Mayor of Dubbo Regional Council, Matthew Dickerson. Hello.
Good morning, Ian. Good to see you back in the seat.
Oh yes, one's got to jump into Phil roster holes every now and then, don't we?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've had a chat to you. That's been filling in very capably for you.
Yes.
Or is it the other way around?
Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing half the time at the moment. But anyway, committee meetings last night.
No, council meeting last night.
The council meeting. My apologies.
The 34th council meeting of this term of council.
Yes.
It was the penultimate council meeting.
Ah, yes.
Yes,
because
we've got one left. 15th of August is our last council meeting, and then there's a little thing called an election coming up on the 14th of September. So next meeting will be the last council meeting that this council group will be together at a council meeting.
Then it goes into caretaker mode, more or less?
The next day, basically. 15th of August is the last council meeting for this term. The next day is caretaker mode. And council still operates. For the people in Dubbo, they probably won't notice a lot of differences. The main thing in caretaker mode is we can't make binding decisions, we can't make major decisions, we can't go and appoint a new CEO, that type of thing. You're not meant to award tenders unless they're urgent. So basically, business as usual without major decisions.
They're held over, obviously, for the next term there, a new or whoever is elected for the next term.
Well, it definitely will be a new group because there'll be an extra one. So this term there's 10 councillors. Next time we'll have 11 councillors. So even if all 10 stood and all 10 got re-elected, then there'll still be a new councillor. So it'll be a new group regardless.
Have you shown your hand yet?
I've got two hands here. I'm showing both of them to you, Ian.
God, I knew you'd do that. You haven't said anything as yet? I'm not going to put you in the corner. I'm just asking whether you've put it out there yet.
I haven't said anything in terms of what I'll be doing yet. I'm still trying to make up my mind, having discussions with my wife and family. I'll let you know as soon as I make up my mind.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Now, Dubbo Regional Council has signed an agreement with a renewable energy company to fund social housing. This is with Exelio. What's happening here?
I'm glad you pronounced it. I wasn't sure how to pronounce that company. It's an interesting spelling of that. So one of the problems we have, Iain, which is a good problem to have, is we've got lots of renewable projects that are happening in our LGA at the moment. That's fantastic. Good for our general economy, but also good for council. One of the issues is we want to get as much money out of them as possible for our community. That makes sense. There are no compulsory amounts that they've got to pay as part of the planning process. There is, in the state government planning processes, you have a discussion with a local council, and that discussion, called a voluntary planning agreement, might come to the stage where you get an agreement in place. In this particular one here, in those discussions, Exelio, hopefully that's how you pronounce it, said, okay, we're happy to pay you $1 million, $200,000 per year over 5 years to help with social housing. Now, one of the issues we have, because it's a voluntary planning agreement, they can have a lot more say in where their money goes than if it was just an amount they had to pay to council. If there was legislation in place that said you'll pay X dollars, say 1.5% of your project cost to council, then council could use that in whatever way we wanted to do. In this particular case, social housing, development of that's fine. It's not really a local government responsibility, but we still think it'll be good for the community. And now $200,000, as you can work out, is not going to do a lot in terms of building social housing. You're not going to build one house in terms of social housing. It's really about helping develop social housing. It might help some projects get across the line. It might help with some planning. I can't tell you exactly how that money will be spent, except that it will have to be spent on developing social housing. This isn't going to kick in until 2026. Most of these planning agreements we're signing up at the moment don't start being paid until the project starts or it goes to financial close. So it's down the track, but from 2026 over the 5 years after that, that $200,000 a year will be paid.
Obviously, this is an evolving story. Expressions of interest will be called later this year. So I guess it's a case of watch this space.
Watch this space, but also it is that challenge that we have where we're trying to get as much money as we can from all these proponents, and that was a different one. So we had another one, for example, recently, Ian, where we got some money for a public art strategy. So that was different. That was their focus. We said, here are our community strategic plans, and they said, oh, we like the look of this public art strategy. Can we fund that? So we got $950,000 for our public art strategy. So there's all these different amounts coming in. It's a real challenge for council to make sure we maximise all these opportunities.
Now, something else that came up, and I only want to mention it very briefly because it's a bit of deja vu. Councillor Josh Black asked fellow councillors, I believe a second time, to back a public toilet policy.
This certainly did come up a few months ago. It got voted down a few months ago, brought back to council. You can't do it within 3 months unless you go for a rescission motion. So councillors can wait more than 3 months and bring the same motion to council again. Same motion got brought forward to council and the same result Bit of discussion about it, but the same result, so we got voted down again.
He's very concerned. I remember when I was on 2 to Your Breakfast there for the fill-in period for about 9.5 months, I had a chat to him about it. He's very concerned about certain formats of how these are constructed, as if they're some sort of risk to the public. But anyway, so at this stage, that's it again. No further action.
Well, each toilet, one of the discussions last night, Ian, was that each toilet block that is built by council is built with specific needs in place. So there is consultation happening about each individual toilet block, individual designs. So the idea was having a policy to try and cover all toilets across the LGA didn't make a lot of sense. The comment was made as well that if it is incredibly important, then the state government, rather than relying on each individual local government, 128 of them, the state government can develop a policy. There are certain guidelines or regulations we've got to conform to now when we build a block of toilets, and we conform to those, but the design is not one of those, so that's up to each individual council. But if it is important, the state government could do that. Don't cost shift across to local government to make us do all the work creating policy. The state government can implement that at that level if it was important enough.
Also, too, the councillors considered a request to name 12 new roads after varieties of daisy.
It is a challenge when we've got so many new estates being developed to come up with different names, and most people would be familiar with the fact that you'll see different estates named after different things that developer might be interested in. So for example, up around the Eastridge area, you'll see a lot of names up there that are related to rugby. So Poitevin Place, that type of thing. So you'll see names around there. Around the RAF base, you saw names related to aircraft, which kind of makes a lot of sense. So it's a bit of a challenge. So many names have been taken up. Dubbo's getting so big now. So this particular development had a particular focus on various floral names, and that seemed fine. They all were passed in terms of being allowed to have names there. There's a variety of interesting names in there. What are your favourites in that list there you've got in front of you?
I don't know if I've got a favourite. Flannel Flower Drive, Cutleaf Road, Splendid Loop, Desert Star Drive and Coneflower Road.
Or variable, keep going down the list there, the one that's called variable, I can't remember if it's drive or road.
Oh, I don't have that on my list in front of me.
So there's a range of different ones there.
Oh.
And again, it's just, you've got to have some way of identifying different roads and different names, and there wasn't a lot of discussion about that. The developer wants those names, they're all legal names, they're all reasonable, so that was passed pretty easily by council.
I noticed there were alternate names suggested by the developer, which included butter, chocolate and dookie. I don't know what dookie is. I hate to think.
Look, it is a challenge for developers to come up with enough different names to make sure that you've got unique names across the entire city.
I say this very tongue-in-cheek. Matthew Dickinson Boulevard.
Why would you go with Boulevard? Why not a street or a close?
Crescent or
a place.
Lane.
A lane.
Anyway, so they've gone through.
That's been approved by council. There's still a process to go through, but essentially that's been approved by council.
Okay. Now, also too, voting on Australia Day arrangements for 2025. So what ended up happening there?
This was a really good discussion, and one of the things that came up during the discussion was the fact that we've broken new ground. So in the last 2 years, we've had a twilight event in Wellington. So the 25th of January, 6:30 p.m. has been the event in Wellington. It was 5:30 p.m. the first year, then 6:30 p.m. the next year. And in Dubbo, we've had the event on the morning of the 26th of January. Next year was a bit different because Australia Day falls on a Sunday. The holiday will be on the Monday, so you'll have a long weekend. So at the committee meetings 2 weeks ago, there was a discussion about potentially going, say, for a Friday night in Wellington, the 24th of January, a Saturday night in Dubbo, the 25th of January, and we asked the public to give us feedback about that, and the public did give us feedback. Lots of councillors had phone calls, emails, text messages, etc. So based on that feedback and general feelings from the council itself, we said, let's go with the same that we've done the last 2 years. That is a twilight event in Wellington, so that'll be the 25th of January at 6:30 p.m. That'll be a Saturday night next year, and the Sunday morning for the Dubbo event, so the 26th of January next year. So that's the same as the last 2 years. There was some discussion about having them both on the 26th of January, and councillors talked about that and felt that would be a backward move. We felt like we've made progress by moving towards a twilight and then a main day event for the two different communities. Going to the 26th of January, there were comments by council saying that felt like we've made progress and then stepped back. So at least going down that path, keeping it the same as it was in the previous 2 years, seemed like at least sticking to that progress.
Am I right in saying, was there earlier discussion about having neither of them on the 26th, but perhaps both on the 25th or something? Was there?
Yeah,
A friend of mine, I'll tell you why, a friend of mine in Sydney mentioned something about that. I said, I'll have to ask Matthew.
Yeah, so the committee made a recommendation to have one on the 24th and one on the
Yes.
25th. One of the discussions last night was actually talking about, do we have them both on the 25th? So there were a variety of discussions, remembering that the first year we made the decision, the Citizenship Code of Australia, the Australian Citizenship Ceremonies Code, said that we had to have the Dubbo event on the 26th, but we had flexibility with the Wellington event.
Right, yeah.
That's when we made the change back to the 25th. Subsequent to that, Andrew Giles, the Minister, made an announcement there'd been a change to the Australian Citizenship Ceremonies Code, which allowed councils to have the event up to 3 days before or 3 days after. That gave us more flexibility. In the end, we didn't take advantage of that flexibility. We still had the Wellington event the night before, but we could have had the Dubbo event a day or 2 days or 3 days before. We didn't take advantage of that. But again, it's interesting that the change that we made a couple of years ago, the federal government has now reflected that, not just because of us, but across councils across the nation, to say you've got that flexibility there.
What was the feedback from the arrangements last year with the Wellington one being early on and then the Dubbo one on the day? What was the overall feedback? What were the comments that you heard?
Yeah, some people were incredibly happy and some people were incredibly unhappy. And I think that's happened sometimes when you make decisions. The easiest way and to keep people happy, in my opinion, after all the years I've spent in local government, is to do nothing. If you do nothing, people go, oh good, nothing's changed, everything's the same as it was yesterday, I'm happy with that. But the reality is, if you're a progressive council, you are making decisions, and some people don't like when you make those decisions because things are changing. So the feedback from the last 2 times we've had it is some people said, wow, this is fantastic. We love the twilight event. It's a better time of day. We like the idea that you've moved the ceremony away from the 26th. We think that's giving respect to Aboriginal people in our community, so that's fantastic. Other people said, this is terrible. You're making Australia Day change.
Oh, you're woke. Yes,
that's right. But I want to make it very clear that at no stage have we ever said we're trying to change the date. The 26th of January is Australia Day. We don't have the power, and at no stage have we had the inclination to change the date. It's just when the ceremony is held. And a perfect example was given during the debate last night, the fact that the Australian of the Year is announced by the Prime Minister of this nation at a twilight event the day before Australia Day.
Yeah. What about also, it is not the only, is it the only time that you hold a citizenship ceremony throughout the year?
No,
Is it? No.
They're so popular now, Iain, that we're holding them now every 2 months approximately. So we've got one more in this term of council left at the end of August. We had one recently, so we're finding so many people are coming to Dubbo. They were getting too big. We used to hold them every 3 months, but it was getting so big each ceremony that it almost lost a bit of the personal touch, so we brought them back every 2 months.
Right.
So yeah, about 6 times throughout the year you'll have a citizenship ceremony.
And I think that's important to highlight too, because it means that it isn't exclusive and tied up to Australia Day. It just coincides at that particular time of the year, and then the others carry out throughout the year.
If you happen to finish all your process to become an Australian citizen around that time, then sure, you'd hold off. You'd say, oh, I'll wait till that one on Australia Day. So that's nice to have it on Australia Day. But if you have finished your paperwork and completed that in June, you're probably not going to wait till January to do that.
No, certainly not. Well, anyway, I think to me it sounds like a tick win-win, same as last year. We're just status quo.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep.
All right. Well, I very much thank you for coming in today and bringing us up to date there with the results of last night's meeting. Well attended meeting, was it?
Oh, we had at least 6 people in the gallery, so a bit different to last month.
Unlike the one in the theatre, right? Matthew Dickinson, until you catch up with Brett Murray next week, thank you for your time this morning on 2 to You.
Good to see you again, Anne.
2 to You, it's coming up to 2 minutes to 8.